All right, we are recording. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so this is Lottie Spaces with Diego Toda. Definitely want to thank everyone for listening out there in the audience, and thank you for lending an ear and listening to what Diego is going to talk about today. So, my name is Austin. I am one of the partnership and community managers here at LottieFiles, and I am here with Diego Toda, who is a seasoned designer and Webflow expert based in Brazil, the amazing country of Brazil.
Yeah.
So, the purpose of this Lottie Spaces session and the purpose of all Lottie Spaces sessions are simply to foster great discussion and have an exchange of ideas to help designers build epic careers. So, the format of this, and it's not going to last any more than an hour, we like to keep our times pretty constrained. First, we're going to do some introductions and provide some context into who Diego is and his background, just to provide some context to what we're going to talk about moving forward. Then we're going to dive into some discussion here. I have some questions already worked out, but if I do, hear a part of Diego's story that I want to dive into some more, we could sprinkle it in there. So no worries there. And then we're going to finish off with some closing questions and then some call to actions for the audience. So usually this is a point to where I would encourage people to, participate and ask questions and use hashtags, but we don't have to worry about that now. So
Yeah.
cool. So I'm going to do a little more formal introduction and then I'll let you introduce yourself as well. But so, from my understanding, what I've gathered by doing my research on Diego has been building websites for more than 10 years and has focused on the entire process from the planning to the design to the building to the actual launching of the website and all the little microtransactions that happen in between. Diego's also worked with amazing companies. I'm just going to list a few here, not the entire list because there is a long one. Creator Led, which is a venture capital fund focused on connecting influencers and the creator economy. Another notable client of his is Nas Studios, which is the B2B side of Nas Daily, which works with global brands to produce viral content, which I think is pretty cool. And then the last one that caught my eye was Jungle, which is a studio that develops and publishes hybrid games that are mobile first and blockchain enabled. And I have a blockchain background, so I'm definitely going to dive into that a little bit
Nice.
there. So, as we can see, Diego has a very diverse background, very diverse experience, and I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I'm gonna pass the microphone over to you. I would love for you to share with us what I call the hero backstory, right? I love a good background story. I love knowing where people grew up, where they came from, and how they got to the point that they're at now. So I would love for you, in your own words, to just give us your background. Tell us, if you're comfortable sharing where you grew up, how you grew up, and how do you think the way that you grew up shaped you to become the person that you are today, Diego?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I'm born and raised here in Brazil. I lived in a town close to São Paulo called Campinas, and then I moved to other cities. And since I was a kid, I always loved like art in general, and I really loved to draw superheroes and watch superhero cartoons. And I was a huge fan. I'm still a huge fan of Japanese culture, like anime and all those old series. Like, you remember back in the day when we had Changeman, and then Power Rangers came after, and all those all the things came from Japanese culture. We had a channel here in Brazil specifically that had a lot of that stuff. So I grew up basically watching all of that, and I was always passionate about stories. This all the stories that all those scenes were telling, and all the art and animations and drawing things. So I always wanted to be an artist. I thought that my future would be drawing stuff and make a living of my drawing. So I did superheroes and game characters. I love to do that kind of stuff. and then yeah, that was my passion. And then I grew up and I decided to do like advertising because I thought that it would be like a good let's say a good middle ground between like doing art or doing something that I like to do and actually making money for a living, right? So I had to find a profession that allowed me to like make money and like be independent, etc. So I did like advertising college here in Brazil. That's where I met my wife, and like since the beginning of college, we did everything together, all like group assignments. We did everything together. We worked really well together, and once we graduated, then I was ready to find a job on an agency here in Brazil. But instead of doing that, like me and my wife, we always did like everything on most of the assignments, and we'd like to do that. So we thought like, what if instead of like finding a job in an agency, why don't we just do our own thing? So yeah, we just went crazy, say, well, okay, let's just open our own agency in Brazil. And we did it. And it was extremely difficult at the beginning. We struggled a lot because we learned a lot on the college about like doing the craft, like I don't know, doing some brand design work, graphic design, also like creating like campaigns for clients, etc., planning, etc. So we learned a lot about the craft. But one thing that we didn't learn on college, and I think that this is something that should be taught in college, is about the business itself. Like we had no idea how to administrate a business, like about finance, about like actually dealing with clients. So all that and sales, etc. So all that experience that is required for you to actually run a business, we didn't have that at the beginning. So we struggled a lot. We had a lot of losses. I even had to sell my car to pay that because like the bills they kept coming and we were not making enough money. So I had to sell my car to actually pay some bills. So we struggled a lot, and we did a lot of mistakes until we started like not making as many mistakes as we were doing before. And we actually started getting some traction, some clients. And that's when I actually started doing websites professionally. I did websites before that, like as a hobby. Me and my wife had like a personal project before, which was like we went to like parties, and she's a photographer. So she was like taking photos, and I like built the website to host the photos so people could just go to the website and check the photos and download their own photos, etc. So like I did some web design stuff before, but on agency, that's where I actually started doing websites professionally. So I thought, okay, it requires some design work because I need to do the web design, and then I need to learn how to actually build something good for the websites. And that's when I started working with WordPress. Like WordPress was a platform of choice at that moment, and like I really enjoyed to do more creative work, like brand design, graphic design, but it wasn't paying the bills a lot. So I had to find something that allowed me to make more money, and doing websites is the thing that actually started making more money on the agency. And that's how I started building and designing websites. And one of the other things, and like this was pretty clear for me in college as well, is that I really enjoyed like the whole process. Like there's some people that just like to like just do their own thing on the whole project and then just like go away, like being a specialist, etc. I don't like that. I like to be a generalist. I am a generalist by nature, where I like to know how things work from the beginning, the more conceptual work, when you start gathering information and planning everything, and then doing the designs, building your own thing, launching, etc. So I love to learn to know the whole process of things. And I think this is interesting because when you are a generalist and you understand the whole process, you do your work more efficiently. For example, when I was doing the websites for our clients, I was also responsible for doing the designs and at the same time the development. So when I was doing the designs, I was doing that already thinking about how I would build that. So the whole process was more efficient. And it's the same thing as me and my wife did in college. We did the whole, like, all the assignments we did together. And most of the time we had to do multiple things. We had to multitask there. So I think that's where my generalist spirit became clear to me. Right?
Came from, yeah. And
Yeah.
so first of all, I really appreciate you diving in, because like I said, this is a story, right? And people want to hear all of the parts that are difficult, the parts that are amazing. I love the normality of it, right? You're just a regular guy that, was born and grew up in Sao Paulo. And you were a fan of Japanese culture, which I'm sure a lot of people were at the time, especially when Naruto was out and, that whole shebang there. So, I want you to talk a little bit more about the environment and what it was like for a designer back then, because here we are in 2023. We have motion is more accessible, of course, through LottieFiles. We have Figma and Adobe After Effects and all of these different plugins that LottieFiles has, that necessarily weren't there not 5 years ago, but let's say 10, 15 years ago. So I want to hear from your perspective of what was the environment like then, as a new designer, and then compare that to the environment now as a new designer. Do you think it was easier to design back then and there was more community, or do you think now it's easier to design and there's more community, or maybe somewhere in between?
Oh yeah, well, definitely today is a lot easier because of several things. Like the tools are a lot easier. They do a lot of things for you, like out of the box, so you can focus on other areas like being more creative and the ideas and the concepts. Community is something that I don't think there's the concept of like having a design community back in the day, because like 10, 12, 30, 13 years ago, like it's like 13 years since I actually started building websites. And well, there wasn't that concept back in the day, and I was like designing stuff using CorelDRAW. It wasn't even like Illustrator or the Photoshop or the Adobe Suite. It was like designing stuff on CorelDRAW because I did a lot of graphic design work and some print work. And like motion, it was like I couldn't even imagine using motion on web designs. Like all my web designs were okay, but like most of the time they were static, because like adding a video to a website was like impossible to think about that. Like, how do you add a video to a website? It wasn't possible. And even if it was possible, the technology at that point wasn't like good enough to provide like good experience. Like it was really difficult. So like any kind of motion work that I had to do for a client was mostly like I don't know, producing a video that they can, I don't know, use somewhere. And well, there was After Effects back in the day, like it's an old version of After Effects. And yeah, I played with After Effects at that time. I like it to work with like animating things, but I hadn't thought about at that point to add that part of the process, like creating motion and include that motion work on the web. So yeah, it was really difficult to think about that and do that kind of stuff.
Because the
Now,
file sizes were huge, right? Like we weren't talking about like 30 KB file sizes. Weren't they like really large and like clunky? And if you wanted to transport it, it was
exactly,
like,
yeah, exactly. And like back in the day, HTML5, it wasn't a thing at all. Like yeah, like I started building websites with HTML4. So like the video tag, for example, that you can use on website, it simply doesn't exist. It didn't exist back in the day. So yeah, like all this whole concept of adding motion on the web, creating all those creative and engaging experiences that we can do today, adding motion, animation, interactions, etc. It wasn't a thing at all. At all. I really love to work with like adding motion to things, but like it wasn't like something that was core of my work. It's something very supportive. It's something very that I didn't do that very often.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I love just the contrast of like, this is why I appreciate having you as a guest, because we're able to see the contrast of what it was like in, you know, the olden days, and now, you know, what it's like today. So I think that's really important, especially for our listeners to understand, like, the tools that we have today weren't here a while ago. The communities that we have today weren't here a while ago. So you should definitely appreciate where we're at in this point in time, and start to connect with people. So speaking of connecting with people, I want to talk about mentorship, because I think at that time, right, that was probably, or I would assume it was some, you know, played some role within your career journey, because if the tools aren't there and maybe the community isn't there, I would think that somebody would seek out a mentor, seek out somebody that's already done something, just to kind of get a hold of it. But I want to hear from you. Did you have a mentor back then? Was there open mentorship back then, or was it kind of you and your wife versus the world?
Yeah, well, yeah. At that time, it was basically me and my wife against the world. So, like I said, we did a lot of mistakes by ourselves because we haven't had any experience with agencies before, so we didn't had any mentors, people that could help us like understand the parts of running a business that we didn't understand back in the day. So yeah, we learned by making mistakes at that point, and like I think that was fine. Like we struggled, but we managed to like do it and like have some success, right, on a career. But let's see, like, so I was saying that I was doing WordPress stuff, right? After some point, I started doing WordPress for clients outside Brazil. That was one of my career shifts, because before it was just like clients here in Brazil, and doing projects for clients outside Brazil, mostly for people in the US or Europe, like it was a whole new level, right? And I did a lot of that WordPress development stuff from, let's say, 5 6 years, and then I found myself more into the development side of things and less on the creative side of things, which was fine. I enjoy building stuff, but I was like a full stack developer on WordPress, building custom plugins, custom themes, like handling hosting, all that complicated stuff. And at some point, I wasn't enjoying my career anymore, because like it was mostly like logic and like business logic and translate that into something that works, which is okay. I also like that, but like I had zero work on creating stuff, like more creative stuff, like designing something or designing a brand or designing the website itself. So, and that's when I met someone, like a guy, which is also Brazilian, called JP João Paulo, and he is a former brand designer at Webflow. Back in the day when Webflow like started, he was one of the first brand designers at Webflow, and like he started showing up on social media, on Instagram, and I started following him and his stories about his career and his vision about business. And then that's when I met Webflow, and I think, okay, this guy is someone that I want to follow. I want to learn with this guy, and I want to learn more about Webflow. And he launched a course here in Brazil called Super Skills, which is a course for designers but it's not like a design course, it's a business course. He explains like on this course how do you use your design skills to make money. The tagline for the course is make money, not design. So yeah, I did the course. It changed my mindset about how I was doing business. And then I had the opportunity to like get close to JP and like talk to the guy and learn more about like how he thinks about business and design in Webflow in general. And that helped me a lot to rethink my career, to rethink the plan, because like if I kept doing what I was doing, it wouldn't be sustainable, because it was doing like hourly rates, doing WordPress stuff, getting a lot of stress because I wasn't doing things that I was really enjoying. I was working for like basically one client mostly, so I was mostly like a full-time developer for that client, doing hourly work and doing stuff that I didn't like. So I felt like I don't want to do this anymore, because I was at the edge to burnout. And it wasn't scaling. Like I couldn't make more money than I was doing before, because the amount of money I was doing was like attached to the amount of hours I could work in a week, and that was really stressful. So like talking to JP, like getting in touch with him constantly, asking questions, and like hanging out on a Google Meet link, something like that. That allowed me to change my mindset and like make a plan to restart my career. That happened 2 years ago. That's when I started working Webflow. And I decided, okay, I want to get back to my roots. I want to start using Webflow to create more creative stuff. I want to get back to the design stuff and build the stuff that I design. And with his help, I was able to do that successfully. Like I was able to go from like a part-time freelancer doing like half the time WordPress stuff and half the time Webflow stuff to full-time Webflow freelancer in 6 months since I started working Webflow. I was planning to do that in a year, but I had to do that earlier because like the things I was doing based on the things I learned with him, especially on the business side of things, it was really successful, more than it was expected. And yeah, so that's what's fundamental on being where I am today, like being able to connect with someone that has more experience, not only with Webflow, but on how you can monetize your skills as a designer. So having direct contact with that guy, that really helped me a lot to rethink how I was doing my career, like change my mindset about business and how to use design as an asset to make money. And yeah, so here I am, thanks to that guy.
Yeah, and I would say one of the conclusions that I drew from what you said is that once you start to align yourself with what you want to do, you know, whether it's design or development, you start to naturally, whether you're seeking it out intentionally or not, unintentionally, you start to attract people that are on that journey or have already been on that journey. And then, like you said with JP, you met him some way, somehow. You started having more conversations, and then eventually, like you said, this connection that you made started to drastically improve your life, whether that was in the time it took you to complete a particular task or introducing you to new people or whatever the case may be. So I really appreciate you for harping on, you know, how mentorship played a role in your career, because I think a lot of people are questioning, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm watching all these YouTube videos, I'm listening to all these podcasts, which they're probably going to listen to this, you know, but maybe I want an individual, a mentor to kind of help me out here. So I think that's super important. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to dive back into that motion aspect, because of course we are LottieFiles, and of course we have an amazing platform and we want to shout from the hilltops, but we want to hear it from people like yourself that are actually using our products. So first and foremost, you talked a little bit about how you got introduced into motion. You know, you were working on websites, and at first it wasn't very viable, but then it got more viral over time as the tools got better. So I want to ask you, can you share with us how you first came across LottieFiles? And then maybe what was the moment that clicked in your mind that was like, okay, this is a service, this is a software that I need to integrate within my workflow because it's going to drastically help me. I would love to hear that story from you.
Yeah, sure. So I was introduced about I started learning about LottieFile because of Webflow, because Webflow has a native integration with LottieFiles, right? I heard about Lottie like a while ago before I learned about Webflow, but like it didn't click for me because I wasn't doing like a lot of creative work, so it just like looked like a fun thing, but not for me at that moment. But once I started working Webflow, and Webflow is really great because one of the core features is the interactions feature that allows you to create like animations and interactions easily without touching a single line of code. This is one of the biggest advantages for me, Webflow. And so I started diving more into motion and tried to use Webflow interactions as much as I could. But there's a limit to things you can do out of the box with Webflow interactions. And then I learned about LottieFiles, and Webflow has an amazing educational content about like how to use the platform. And there's a chapter on Webflow University that they dedicate to like teaching you how to use LottieFiles. And then once I saw like that it was even possible to have like a 3D animation run through a LottieFile, They have a specific video for that. My mind was blown. I said, wow, that's what's going to take my work to the next level, because I can create like creative animations using like vector graphics. I can even do 3D work because like I'm really passionate about 3D. I try to add 3D stuff as much as I can on my projects, and like finding a way to actually bring that 3D experience to a website using like just an image sequence and a Lottie file, that like was like, that made my mind blow. And I say, okay, I want to dive into this. That's the moment. And yeah, then I started using LottieFiles, learning how to use that. Well, I had an experience with After Effects previously, so I found a way to like to design things on After Effects, or even like in Figma, bringing into After Effects, and then using After Effects to create animation. And then there was the body moving extension that allowed me to like generate a Lottie file based on my animation on After Effects. So yeah, I started working on that workflow, and it worked pretty well. At some point, I stopped using Body Movie because LottieFiles obviously launched their own extension, right, which works really well, and that's what I use today. So my usual process is mostly designing on Figma. I use a little plugin called AEUX to grab all of my layers and frames, etc. on Figma, move to After Effects, then animate stuff there, and then I use the LottieFiles extension to generate a file for that. And that works also for the 3D stuff. So the image sequence, if I want to have an animation run through a LottieFiles, which is a 3D, something rotating, something like that, I just render on the 3D software, throw into After Effects, and use the LottieFiles extension to export that image sequence as something that I can animate with Webflow. And then I just drag and drop the file into Webflow, and then I can use like scroll-based interactions. I can play with the animation. I can like use mouse over any kind of interactions that are available in Webflow. I can use that easily to animate a Lottie file. So for me, like this is one of the fundamental pieces of my work in terms of motion today that allows me like to take the experience to the next level, because like can get really creative using LottieFiles to create those animations.
100%. And I think we've only had 2 LottieSpaces. This is the 3rd one, but a reoccurring theme that I got from it is that, you know, the reason that people were attracted to LottieFiles is because it was integrated with the software that they were already using and that they were already familiar with, whether that's Webflow, WordPress, After Effects. We just released our integration with Canva. And Canva's like the super basic, like you don't have to know anything to use Canva. And now there's motion in it. So I think it's really important to share these stories about, you know, how are we evolving in our career, right? Through different conversations, being introduced into different softwares that can, you know, 2, 5, 10x our efficiency, because, you know, we couldn't do it before unless we knew how to code HTML or something like that. So I love how you were able to talk on that. If you could, and if you need to take your time to think about it, I would love to hear a story or maybe a project that you worked on where you felt like, you know, this is good, but I need to add some motion to it and it became better. Is there anything that you can think of where you're like, yes, like because I added motion here, because I was using LottieFiles, I was able to create this amazing product, and did I not have this software, it probably wouldn't have turned out as well?
Yeah, well, that's easy. Like I have a project called Minrims, which is like a foldable glasses, and like it's an interesting product. It's a foldable glasses that you can attach to your phone. Like it's MagSafe compatible, and so I had to create a landing page for this project, and I had access to the 3D files, so I imported the CAD file into my 3D software, which is Blender. I use Blender for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was able to like generate some good renders of the product so I could use on the project. It was looking good, but there was a specific section of the project where I had like a transparent rendering of the glasses, and it has like some rotating text on the background done by Webflow. It was looking fine, but I thought like, well, it's a foldable glass, so how do we demonstrate that on the landing page? It would be really cool if we could demonstrate how that exactly works. So I had the idea of rendering an image sequence of the animation of the glass, like it's all folded, and then as you start scrolling on into that specific section that shows the glass, it will be like unfolding. It's a scroll based animation unfolding the glass. And like, how do I do that? And my approach was exactly what I told before. I generate the image sequence on the 3D software and render the image sequence through into After Effects and generate a Lottie file for that. And without a Lottie file to make something similar, I would have to dive into like, I don't know, like 3JS and like actually doing the glasses in 3D and use 3JS and something like that to generate the animation, which is totally fine and will probably look more smooth or something like that. But like, it's a complicated. You have to deal with custom code, and like, I try to stay away of custom code as much as I can. Not because I can't code. I definitely can code a website from scratch if I need to, but for efficiency. Like, I don't want to spend like tons of hours just to set up an environment where I can have a 3JS animation, etc. So like, what is the approach that I can use that allows me to make this faster and in a satisfying way that like just gets the job done? And yeah, LottieFiles was fundamental for that. I was able to generate a Lottie file for that animation, 3D animation, throw in Webflow, use scroll-based interaction to animate that specific part of the landing page. And yeah, it was really successful. People love that specific part of the landing page, and I'm really proud of how it turned out.
Yeah, and when I think of animation, right, I think about storytelling. This is, you're looking at a screen at the end of the day, and whether you're interacting with a brand or a product, you're being told a story. Whether it's, you click the like button on Twitter and you see the little confetti pop out, it's a story about you liking a particular post, and it's just more interactive, and it makes people feel like they're a part of what's being built. So before we get into some of the closing questions, I would love for you to, and this kind of goes into mentorship, kind of not, but more so like examples, right? I would love for you to share an example of a product or a brand that you admire for its success in creating that strong emotional connection. Like, is there, whether it's Apple or whatever, is there any company or brand or product that you look at and you like, they are doing it right, and maybe I should take some notes from them?
Well, you already name it. Like, the Apple is probably the first one on my mind. I'm not an Apple guy, to be honest. Like, I don't have Apple products. My wife has it. Like, she's a full like Apple fan. And yeah, I think that Apple is really successful specifically for that, because telling a story is what make people connect with you or your product or your brand, and they are masters of it. Like, you think about it, like, all their products are not that much innovating. Like, they launch mostly the same iPhone every year. Like, they just change a few specs, right, a little bit of the design, but it's mostly the same phone every year. But they tell a story using like motion, using like video, using all kinds of resources in a way that make people like really feel like, I need this. I need to change my last year's iPhone to this year's iPhone because this is amazing. Not because of the product, but it's because how they present the product, how they tell a story about the product. So like that for me, like, it's genius. And I always tell people like about presentation. Like, presentation is fundamental. Either if you're selling a product, selling your business, service, or, for example, if you are a freelancer and you want to sell your services, the way you showcase your projects, you need to put as much effort as you can on showcasing your projects the best way possible, telling the story or like showing the best way possible, because that's what will make clients look at your project and say, wow, this is incredible. I want to work with this person. Yeah, presentations is everything on anything that you want to sell. And that's how you tell a story, with a good presentation. And Apple is like the biggest company when you think about that. Like, and I think it's because design is like a fundamental part of their like, not the product, but it's like, it's part of the company. It's not just like one thing that you have for marketing purposes. It's part of the product. It's part of the culture. and that's why I think they're really successful in that.
Yeah, they are definitely doing an amazing job. So,
Yeah.
we're getting towards the end here, and I think these are probably some of the best questions in my opinion because they always elicit some of the best responses. But so you have had a career spanning a decade. You've seen the early days working with WordPress to now working with Webflow, and you've got Figma, After Effects, and all these, Canva coming in here. So I want to ask, right? This is an ever evolving field, and I had a conversation with Grace Ling, who's another prominent person within the design space, and she started talking about AR and VR as because that's going to be becoming a thing, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years from now. We have to start to learn those things. So the question that I want to ask is, in this ever evolving field of design, how do you stay updated? How do you stay up to date with the newest technology? And how do you stay up to date with information in order to improve your skills?
Question. Well, I think that first thing, you need to be everywhere. Well, social media is there for like several reasons. You can leverage social media for several things, and sorry, and that's how you learn about new stuff, right? That's where I learn about new stuff every day. Like, I just try to follow the right people and the right companies and profiles and social media in general to learn new things, and that's where I learn about new stuff. So I think that being connected with other people, being part of a community, that's fundamental part of learning about new technologies, and having a way to dive into those things, and maybe have other people that are ahead of you on the journey that helps you take a few steps forward, because they already know those things, and they can help you and guide you to the right direction to where do you look for, because information today is there's tons of information out there. It's overwhelming. So how do you filter all of that and find a path to learn new stuff without being feeling overwhelming? So being connected to the right people, following the right people, the right profiles everywhere. That's probably how you find your path, and find a guide for you to learn about all those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to touch on the other piece of that. I already talked a little about AR and VR, but I want to ask, so what emerging trends or what emerging technologies do you think are currently shaping the design field as of November of 2023? And how do you think designers should adapt to stay relevant?
That's a very broad question.
Yeah, wherever you want to take a piece out of it, just attack it.
Well, I think that when we talk about immersive experiences, obviously there's AR and VR coming, but today for the web, I think that 3D in general is what turns experiences more immersive. So you can see, for example, really interesting projects that use 3D. For example, you have games on your browser today. There's a project that I really love that was launched. I don't know if it was this year or a year ago, from an agency called Merci Michel, called Coastal World. And I don't know if you heard about it, but it's amazing. And it's a website. It has a goal. It's not just a game because it's a game, and it's a website for a client, and etc. But the experience where you jump into the website and you have whole world to explore that, and you have mini games inside of that, and have different characters that you can talk to and explore. It's a really immersive experience. And I spent at least an hour when I found the website just playing with it, because it's fun and you feel compelled to learn more and see more. And so they're using that type of technology to tell a story and give you an experience that you can explore. So that's amazing. So I think that I think that the trend here is that we're going to see more of that in the future. So learning how to implement that into your projects, learning a little bit of 3D. How can you use 3D to create a more immersive experience on websites? That's one of the things that will probably be big it's already big, but it will be bigger in the next few years, I think. And I also think that's the kind of experience that will probably be able to leverage when AR and VR is more like a mainstream thing, because like all the experience will be probably translated into something that can move into the AR and VR world. It's already possible right now. Like you can create these 3D experiences and generate like an ER experience with that really easily. There's tools for that. So yeah, like I'm passionate about 3D. So I think I'm kind of biased here, but I truly think that learning a little bit on how to create that immersive experience using 3D for the web, it's something that will probably set professionals apart, like from people that just like do the like websites the way they are today with some interaction animations. That's cool, but like adding that next level of immersive experience will probably set people apart.
Yeah, and I think an easy conclusion to draw from what you just told us is that at the end of the day, we're trying to create better stories. We're trying to create more immersive experiences. And we've done that over the last 20 years, right? Like, look at the iPhone, look at all these new technologies that we have for the purpose of creating a more immersive experience. So I think to what you're saying is like, just understand, where's the storytelling at, right? How can we better tell the story of the brand, the product, or whatever we're working on? And how does this new technology that I'm looking at, whether I saw it scrolling through Twitter or TikTok or pick your poison, does this need to be integrated? How can it be integrated? And if I don't integrate it in 5 years, will I be out of a job because I didn't integrate it? And that's why I wanted to harp on this conversation, is because I can imagine the design career field is pretty competitive, right? So you have to be at the head of the pack if you want to, like you said, talking about your struggles, if you want to land those big clients, if you want to retain those big clients for 6 months to a year to 6 years or whatever the case may be. So I really appreciate you for diving into that there. So we're down to the final countdown with some questions here. You talked a bit about courses before, and I want to reverse the question back on you. So out of everything that we talked about and out of everything that you have experienced, if you had to create a course, what would that course be about?
That's a good question, and I think that one of the things I see today from a lot of designers is that you have courses for everything in terms of knowledge, like learning how to use Webflow, learning how to use LottieFiles, learning how to use 3D. Like there's all those like skills, and you can learn all those skills and in several courses that are out there. But I think that one of the things that are missing and people are not talking about enough is how to actually think, how to think about design, how to think about solutions, how do you leverage those skills you learn, all those skills like spread across the board. How do you connect those skills in a way that makes sense to create solutions using design, using motion, using development, etc. So I think that's something that will be probably something that I would like to talk about. Like, how do you think as a designer to create solutions for your clients using the skills you have? So it's less about like how to operate a tool and more about like how to think about design, think about motion, think about telling a story. How do you think and how do you create solutions for that? That's something that I'll probably like to talk about.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think people, especially when they're getting started in their journey, they may miss that point of like, you have to think holistically, right? You're building up this skill, either one, because you just want to learn how to design, or two, because you want to make money, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, if they are doing this to make money, they may focus too much on the design piece, and they don't focus on, how do I attract clients with my design? How do I deliver a product and communicate, along that journey of delivering a product? So I think what you're talking about is super important. And if you did create a course on it, I'm sure lots and lots of people would sign up, because you seem like an extremely intelligent person who knows what they're talking about. So what are you working on right now that gets you excited? Like when you wake up in the morning, you're like, yes, I get to work on this thing. Like, this is my baby. Do you have anything like that right now?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm working on a few projects right now, like mostly like landing pages and something like that. That obviously leverage motion and storytelling, right, to sell the product. So yeah, I'm working on a few client projects for that. And I'm also working on a few other ideas that I can't share right now, but I'll probably share like a new feature that also excites me about, because it's less about like doing client work and more about something geared toward the community, especially for designers. So yeah, I'm excited about that stuff. And obviously, I love to create content as well. Like every time I have an idea, for example, for a Webflow app or for a clonable that leverages like motion, for example, because that's the thing I like to do. I always love to work on those ideas, and I'm working on a few clonables right now. For example, using 3D, maybe using LottieFiles to like spice things out a little bit, and yeah, like I'm all across the board. I work on multiple stuff at the same time, doing client work, doing like personal projects for generating content for people, and thinking about other ideas, because like, okay, I'm a designer, I'm a freelancer, and at the end of the day, I want to make money. So how do I make how I create other revenue streams? And then that's what I'm working on right now. Like, I have a good career as a freelancer, but I want to expand. I want to find other ways to make money, but at the same time help other people. And this is the stuff that I'm working on right now that I can't share, but it will be coming soon.
Coming soon for sure, and we will definitely support you in whatever that is. So this is the final question here. This is going to be the one to close it out. So I guess, we're in 2023 now, of course. Let's say, you met your younger self 10 years ago at a coffee shop, and bright-eyed, bushy-eyed, definitely wants to get into the design space. But this question is more so just about advice, right? Advice for the next generation of designers. So what advice, tips, tricks, stories, what do you want to give that next generation of designers, or what do you want to give your younger self in order to prepare them for, being a designer in 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, so like in terms of advice, I think that's something that I tell people all the time, people that know me and the community, especially in the Webflow community, is just do it. And when I say just do it, what I mean is like, don't get stuck. Like, don't be comfortable. Because if you're comfortable right now, it means that you're stuck in your place and you're not progressing, you're not moving forward. So like, seek being uncomfortable. Like, be uncomfortable. That means that you're moving forward something. You're doing something and you're progressing. And like, I think that being comfortable is one of my mistakes when I was like doing WordPress stuff. Like, I was making okay money, paying the bills, and then I just got comfortable. And at some point, I just got stuck because I was not learning new stuff. I was just doing the same thing every day. I wasn't happy, and yeah, like that was a mistake. And then when I decided to like just try something new, even if I was scared of failing, because like the chances of me failing was huge. Like when I decided to move to Webflow, from WordPress to Webflow, and stop doing like development stuff and move into a more creative stuff where I like design stuff, etc. I haven't designed a website in a while when I decided to do that. And I had like zero portfolio. I had zero projects to show that showcase what exactly I was thinking about doing. And yeah, it was extremely scary. But yeah, somehow I got some good results, and here I am. Like, I was able to change my career because I stopped being comfortable and I decided to just like try something new, even if it was extremely scared of failing, and see how that would go. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I see people scared of like designing something or publishing that design on social media to show people what they're capable of, or I don't know, even trying a new idea. Like, they just got stuck, like building your portfolio and launching it. Like, that's the classic problem with creative people and designers, right? It's like designing your portfolio and launching it. And that's actually like holding you back. And what do you have to lose? Most of the time, you have nothing to lose. So like, just do it. Just launch that portfolio. Just publish your design. Just try your idea. Like, just do something and don't get stuck. Don't be at the same place. avoid feeling comfortable. We want to feel comfortable at like, let's say, on the business side of things, right? But like, if you're comfortable, it means that you're not progressing. So like, just try something new.
Yeah, I definitely identify with what you're saying of like some people won't release their work because they're scared of critiques, when in reality, how it turns out is you release it to the world, and not only do you don't get any critiques because nobody knows about it, nobody cares about it, and you could you could spin the story however you want, but at the end of the day, you have to put it out there because or else it's just going to be stuck in your head. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate that last note from you there. So let's close it out here with some action items and initiatives. So where can listeners follow up with you? Twitter, YouTube, wherever the case may be. How can they support you? Donation links or whatever. And then, do you have any important dates or initiatives that you want to mention before we close out here?
Yeah, sure. So like, people can follow me. I'm mostly on Twitter, like I said. That's like my preferred channel. That's where I'm at every day. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm there as well. Well, Dribble, I usually posting stuff on Dribble as well. And what else? And YouTube, yeah, I have a YouTube channel where I share like some tips and tutorials about, like, most of the time, like, things that involve either LottieFiles or 3D or motion, the things that I'm passionate about. So I share stuff there, and yeah, that's it. That's where I'm at. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm also on a Webflow community called the Flow Party. So if you want to hang out, talk about not only Webflow but um, building websites, like doing design stuff, that's what I would love to talk about. Like, the Flow Party has a Discord channel. You can join there, and you can find me there as well. I'm always there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And yeah, we'll go ahead and link all of those down in the different places that we post this. That way people can, go right to it and follow you and support everything that you're doing. So that is going to wrap this one up. I promise you I get you out here in an hour, and we're just about there. So Diego, I really want to express my gratitude for you taking time out of your day, coming to speak with me and the LottieFiles community. I think this is going to be very important, and the people that are listening to it are going to gain massive, massive value from it. So for all of you listening out there, I just want to remind you, go ahead and follow Diego on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, he said is the most active on. And then just support, right? Like, this is our community. This is a design community, Webflow community. You said you're in as well. But yeah, we're in a day and age to where we don't have to fight for mentors and fight for community anymore, right? So
Yeah.
let's take advantage of it while we have it. So that is it for this one. This event has been recorded, and we will be distributing it, although we'll probably cut this out because it'll just be distributed. But with that, yeah, with that being said, my name is Austin. I have been hosting this podcast today, one of the partnership managers here at LottieFiles. And with that, we are done with this one.